The Death Star exhaust port was sabotage. Everyone loves mocking the Empire for building a moon-sized battle station with one fatal flaw. 2 meters wide, straight shot to the reactor, no protective grating. Rogue One finally explained what happened. Galen Erso deliberately embedded a vulnerability so it could be destroyed from within. Canon sources confirm he intentionally built a fatal flaw, then arranged for the rebels to discover it. The Empire couldn't audit every dependency in a planet-sized system built across contractors and secrecy compartments. Authoritarian engineering at its finest. Huge programs get brittle when oversight is compromised, and schedules matter more than verification. The Holdo maneuver should break everything. Vice Admiral Holdo turns her cruiser into a hyperspace missile and splits Snoke's flagship in half. If ramming at light speed works this well, why hasn't anyone weaponized it before? The Rise of Skywalker patched this with one line. Characters call it 1 in a million, implying it's not reliably repeatable. Reference material treats it as extraordinary alignment of speed, timing, and hyperspace transition conditions. Most attempts either miss or produce far less damage. Once you accept those conditions, the galaxy not building doctrine around it becomes plausible. Star Wars makes the cool thing possible, then quietly narrows conditions so it doesn't break the setting. Hyperspace tracking suddenly exists. The First Order tracks the Resistance fleet through hyperspace in The Last Jedi, which shouldn't be possible. For decades, jumping to lightspeed meant you escaped. Canon treats this as a breakthrough that's expensive and specialized. The Last Jedi presents it as new and shocking, implying it's either novel or rare. When you frame it as high-end fusion of sensors and computation, it becomes like stealth detection tech. The first side to field it gains temporary advantage, but it's not instantly everywhere. The Empire relied on physical trackers attached to ships. The Last Jedi version is simply a higher tech jump. If you're enjoying this, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Anyway, Starkiller Base's beam is visible across the galaxy. The First Order fires Starkiller Base, and characters on Takodana watch it happen in real time. Multiple red beams streak across the sky from light years away. Canon descriptions lean into the idea that Starkiller's attack is engineered as terror theater. Reference entries explicitly state the beam was designed to be seen across the galaxy to encourage surrender. Some explanations suggest the weapon's energy path interacts with hyperspace, or creates a visible effect that propagates faster than normal light. Hyperspace isn't normal space, and weapons that punch through it can break intuition. The visibility was intentional. Lightspeed skipping breaks, navigation rules. Poe performs rapid sequential hyperspace jumps in The Rise of Skywalker. Han said hyperspace requires precise calculations or you'll fly through a star, yet Poe's doing blind micro jumps. Reference material frames it as dangerous technique that's risky and stressful on the ship. It doesn't contradict the mass shadow rule so much as dramatically increase the odds you'll emerge somewhere hazardous. The clean reconciliation is that the Falcon has exceptional nav systems, and Poe is perfecting a specialized trick, not rewriting hyperspace as casual joystick feature for every vessel. The Empire used slow walkers on Hoth. Darth Vader's fleet arrives at Hoth, and instead of orbital bombardment, they deploy giant walkers. The movie answers with one line: the rebels raise an energy shield that prevents bombardment. StarWars.com entries describe shield and ion cannon defending Echo Base, with the shield specifically blocking turbolaser strikes. That makes the ion cannon coherent. It buys evacuation time by forcing Star Destroyers to keep distance. Walkers aren't a downgrade, they're a workaround. The Empire lands beyond the shield's footprint, then marches armor into range to knock out the generator from the ground. Resistance bombers drop bombs in space. MG-100 bombers attack by opening bay doors and releasing payloads that fall downward. In space, with no gravity. Ships clearly generate artificial gravity. Characters walk normally on decks across the franchise, so a bomber's internal gravity can drop munitions out of a bay. Once released, you don't need continuous gravity if you give the bombs initial velocity via rails or magnets. Momentum carries them. Lucasfilm's story staff pointed to gravity on the bomber as the simplest required condition. The scene is cinematic, But it doesn't require magic, just a launch mechanism and a target lane. Battle droids shut down from one control ship. The Trade Federation deploys thousands of droids controlled from one orbiting ship. When Anakin destroys that ship, every droid collapses. The Phantom Menace uses centralized control as an intentional weakness. Official materials note battle droids can be controlled by centralized command centers. That's consistent with cheap mass army logic. Centralized control reduces cost, improves coordination, limits disobedience. The franchise later patches the vulnerability by evolving the technology. Advanced droids can operate independently. So, Naboo is a snapshot of transitional technology that gets corrected because it failed catastrophically. Endor's shield generator is a single point of failure. The second Death Star is protected by a shield projected from one bunker on Endor's moon. Return of the Jedi frames Endor as a trap, not an oversight. The Emperor tells Luke the shield is operational and the rebels are walking into an ambush. The Forest Moon lets the Empire hide a massive installation under tree cover, while presenting it as a single objective the rebels feel compelled to strike. It's bait. The generator's vulnerability draws the strike team into a kill box. Palpatine is chasing a decisive battle and Luke's corruption, willing to risk surface vulnerabilities to lure the Alliance. R2-D2's rocket boosters disappear. In Attack of the Clones, R2 uses rocket boosters to fly, but in the original trilogy, he never uses this ability. Not in the swamp, not anywhere. The clean in-universe patch is that astromechs are equipment. Modules can be damaged or removed. R2 spends decades in harsh conditions. It's believable that a rarely needed rocket system would be non-functional or out of fuel by the original trilogy. When you treat rocket boosters as optional hardware rather than always-on superpower, the continuity becomes R2 had a trick in 22 BBY, but doesn't reliably have it in 0 BBY. Jedi starfighters need external hyperdrive rings. Jedi fly small starfighters that lack onboard hyperdrives. They latch on the hyperdrive rings before jumping to light speed. But X-Wings have internal hyperdrives. Canon entries describe transport rings as devices that provide hyperspace capability to fighters without onboard hyperdrives. The design trait is physical. Internal hyperdrives add mass and volume, reducing agility. Jedi starfighters prioritize performance and are supported by carrier doctrine. Later-era starfighters like the X-Wing are built as long-range multi-role craft needing independent hyperspace travel. It's different mission requirements in engineering eras, not a contradiction. Kamino produced millions of clones fast. Kamino secretly grew a clone army using accelerated aging to mature clones in roughly 10 years. By Geonosis, 200,000 clones were ready, with 1 million more coming. The timeline feels aggressive until you stack the assumptions. The Kaminoans are a specialized cloning civilization, commissioning industrial-scale growth with huge funding. Accelerated growth is explicitly part of the pitch. Clones mature faster than normal humans, with training pipelined from childhood. The order is placed years in advance with the Jedi unaware. The plot hole remains in the numbers debate, but Star Wars treats scale impressionistically. Exegol's fleet depends on one navigation tower. The Final Order's fleet cannot leave Exegol without guidance from one navigation tower. Destroy that tower, hundreds of Star Destroyers are stranded. Reference entries describe the Final Order relying on a navigation signal to leave Exegol, an environment uniquely hazardous for plotting safe hyperspace exits. The best in-world defense is that Exegol is intentionally isolated and difficult to navigate. The Sith Eternal centralized the route solution to control who can depart. Dictatorships prefer controllable choke points over resilient decentralization. The film hints at redundancy. They can switch the signal source, but it's the primary one the Resistance can target. Palpatine's clone bodies are unstable. Cloning a body is one problem. Cloning a vessel capable of holding Palpatine's power is a different category. The sequels frame the Sith Eternals' work as occult bioengineering rather than standard Kaminoan mass production. Even in Legends, Palpatine's return leaned on unstable clone bodies as a recurring limitation. The vessel degrades under the strain of his essence. Canon discussions around Exegol point to fragile bodies and the need for a suitable host. The franchise has always treated Force sensitivity as hard to replicate mechanically. Cloning exists doesn't imply cloning a perfect Sith vessel is easy. R2-D2's memory reveals nothing about Vader. The saga implies two answers for why R2 doesn't reveal Anakin as Vader. First, secrecy. R2 is shown holding sensitive information and choosing when to reveal it. Unlike C-3PO, he can't casually spill details in normal speech. Second, protection. Canon material ties C-3PO's wipe to keeping Leia safe. Leaving R2 intact preserves a functional droid who can carry mission-critical data without chattering. In-world, it's plausible R2 either lacks full context or his owners never asked the right questions. Droids are witnesses whose knowledge is bounded by programming, loyalty, and what they choose to share. The Kessel Run measures distance, not time. Solo canonizes the fix fans floated for decades. Han brags in distance because he took a shorter, more dangerous route. Reference material explains most ships take a longer path to avoid the Maw's gravity wells. The Falcon's run cuts closer through peril, reducing the distance traveled. Forbes' breakdown highlights the feat is about piloting, ship robustness, and navigation under threat. Shorter distance implies higher risk, not merely higher speed. Han's boast is both technically correct and character consistent. 12 parsecs isn't about how fast the ship goes, it's about how close to disaster Han was willing to fly. Scarif's shield blocks ships but allows transmissions. The Scarif shield is depicted as a physical access barrier with a controlled gate. Ships can't pass without authorization through the shield gate. That suggests the system is designed like a secured airlock. Physical transit is tightly controlled, but information flows can be routed through approved relays. In Rogue One, the Rebels exploit internal Imperial systems. They infiltrate to reach a data tower and broadcast from within the shield environment. The shield is not an absolute electromagnetic blackout, it's a defense grid with operational needs. Imperial worlds still need communications and logistics. Tracking fobs work at short range only. Canon explicitly nerfs the tech. Tracking fobs are described as short-range sensors that work when the hunter is already in the right area. The system depends on a chain code, a biographical identifier used to confirm a target. The Guild isn't giving you Galaxy GPS, it's giving you an identity profile and a proximity detector. Multiple hunters converge on the same region because the bounty contract plus local intel gets them close, and the fob helps with the last-mile search. When you read it as short range, it becomes consistent with how bounty hunting works. You follow leads to a planet, then confirm you're on the right trail. Interdictors exist, but aren't everywhere. Interdictors exist in canon and are described as ships that can pull vessels out of hyperspace. Their absence from iconic original trilogy battles can be explained several ways. They're experimental, or relatively rare assets not deployed to every fleet action. They require specialized power and escort, making them high-value targets. The Empire's doctrine often assumes superiority without needing interdiction in set-piece battles like Endor, where the trap is achieved by conventional blockade. Interdictors are a tool, not a default. Their prominence grows in later storytelling because writers love the tactical stakes they create. The Eye of Sion enables extragalactic travel. Ahsoka adds a massive hyperspace transport ring built to move a Star Destroyer between galaxies. StarWars.com's databank describes the Eye of Sion as a unique ring with 3 clusters of hyperdrive engines, capable of moving beyond the known galaxy. That framing matters. It's not any ship can do this now. It's this required an extraordinary device. Wikipedia describes it as a specialized ring for extragalactic journeys. Big, rare, and resource-intensive. That keeps continuity intact with earlier lore, where intergalactic travel is possible but extremely uncommon, often associated with unique routes or unusual organisms like Purrgil. If you enjoyed this, I post movie content like this a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.